strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit. Oh, what is going on, guys? Tonight, I'm not ready. I can't do it. Let me try one more time. Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the Only Football Podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about Darren Waller retiring from the NFL. We're going to talk about Jordan Love saying he doesn't need a wide receiver one. We're going to talk about who is going to have the better fantasy year, Jordan Love or Caleb Williams. And we're going to talk about much more NFL news right now. Welcome aboard. Watch the intro.
America is football. Football is
Football is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass for the moment in time. I don't give a damn. Oh my God.
No!
You loved it.
30 to 27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Ladies and gentlemen, make yourself cozy on this very special Sunday edition of the Only Football Podcast. My name is Kyle. I'm foaming at the mouth. They know I ain't the one to mess with. Quit playing checkers on my board. I'm playing chess, bitch. And if I fought my brothers, pick me up like Byron left witch. Okay. One more time. I'm foaming out of the mouth. They know I ain't the one to mess with. Quit playing checkers on my board. I'm playing chess, bitch. And if I fought my brothers, pick me up like Brian Leftwich. Ladies and gentlemen, the retired musician, rapper, famous rapper Darren Waller has retired, and he is now moving on to pursue his music career, which I have to say, I don't think it's going to work out. He did make a song that got released. I thought it was awful, but I actually do like rap, and I myself am a rapper. I've made songs and stuff like that. I like country. I like pop. I like what is it called? Like divorced dad rock. I like Nickelback. I like Guns N' Roses. I like the Eagles. I like Eric Clapton. I consider myself pretty well-rounded. I love indie music. I love the local natives. Kind of the Beatles, of course. Just really, there's not a much shorter list as the music I don't like. But Darren Waller is on that list because that last song that he made was horrendous. I mean, it was really, really bad. And then today I just released the rap that he just released. And if I fall, my brothers pick me up like Byron Leftwich. Darren Waller is retiring, and I got to say, Darren Waller was somebody that I thought had the potential to be all-time great. And I remember when he was with the Raiders, John Gruden was over there, and John Gruden said, "This guy is the best athlete that I've ever coached." And that was saying a lot at the time because John Gruden had been around a lot of special players, and Darren Waller was the best athlete. Now, this decision was not shocking to the sports world. There's a reason that my buddy that's a Giants fan told me this was going to happen. There's a reason the Giants drafted a tight end in the 4th round. Darren Waller made his long anticipated decision to play his last down. It was a long couple months. Waller has informed the Giants, though, that he is retiring. Played 8 seasons in the NFL. This was reported about an hour ago by Ian Rappaport. We have great respect for Darren as a person and a player. The Giants' statement on Waller retiring, we wish him nothing but the best. And once again, he might have a lucrative rap career. And quoting Darren Waller himself, I'm foaming out the mouth. I ain't the one to mess with. Playing checkers on my board. I'm playing chess, bitch. My brothers pick me up like Brian Leftwich. All right. So that is Darren Waller pursuing his musical career as a professional rapper and leaving behind his status as a professional football player, which I must say was very underwhelming considering how talented he was. Now, of course, this decision is completely personal, and by no means am I pointing a finger and saying, oh, you could have been great, because people can be great off the football field. All I'm saying was, man, he looked like he had the potential to be just historically great. And when you look at the historically great tight ends, I think George Kittle will be on that list. Of course, Travis Kelce, probably the greatest of all time. Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez. Those are the big ones that come to mind for me. Of course, Jeremy Shockley. You got even Jeremy Shockley. What was the Jimmy Graham? Greg Oden. Owen. He does the commentary now. Tom Brady just took his job. There's been plenty of great tight ends, but the thing is to be great at something, you actually have to really, really love it and want to get better. And Darren Waller never really came across as the most focused player on the team. He, kind of like myself, seemed really busy in his mind, kind of, putting his attention in a lot of different places, not really, just kind of honing in his craft. I couldn't imagine what he could have become had he had that other part. And that's why it takes both physical talent and, the mental want and, the ability to really hone in on what you're doing. And same thing with any position, quarterback, Drew Brees, highly intelligent. When you think of the quarterbacks that play in the league for a long time, by the end of their career, they're beating you with their head, right? Peyton Manning wasn't going to outrun you. He was going to outthink you. He was going to beat you at the line of scrimmage. So whatever. Darren Waller was really fun to watch. If you play fantasy football, you probably are really upset with him, just because every year you drafted him, you felt like, oh, he's going to go off, and he never really did. He did have one good season where he was a Pro Bowler. He played for the Ravens, Raiders, and Giants. He finished his tenure with 350 receptions, 4,124 receiving yards, 20 touchdowns in 86 games. He was acquired by the New York Giants ahead of the 2023 campaign. Waller's early returns were good, with reports that him and Daniel Jones had quick chemistry, and it showed in the preseason debut together. And I remember watching this debut and going, oh man, Darren Waller's going to go off this year. I was like, I know that we've been saying that for the last couple of years, but I really mean it. And they did have chemistry, and there was a real reason to believe that this was going to work for the Giants. However, the season did not turn out that way. Waller missing 5 games, having just 1 touchdown, 52 catches for 552 yards. It's just kind of what we came to expect, unfortunately. Darren Waller, though, definitely an inspiration on the field when you hear his story of overcoming his battle with drug addiction. He began his NFL career with the Ravens as a 2015 6th-round pick, before multiple suspensions for violating the league substance abuse policy. However, he triumphantly returned, becoming one of the game's elite tight ends during his time with the Raiders, having turned in a combined 18 receptions and 2 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons played. He missed all of 2017 due to suspension. From 2015 to 2018, Waller burst upon the national radar in 2019, having been released by the Ravens during the 2018 season. He was quickly signed by the Raiders, but played in only 4 games. And his second season, Waller, this was his breakout year, caught 90 balls for 1,145 yards and 3 touchdowns, which led to a 4-year, $30 million deal. A favorite of then quarterback Derek Carr, Waller shined in 2020. The Raiders' first season in Las Vegas, he hauled in 107 catches, almost 1,200 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Waller was held just to 11 games in 2021 due to an ankle injury, but he still signed a 3-year, $51 million extension in 2022, with the $17 million annual value remaining tops among tight ends through his early retirement. However, he played in just 8 games in 2022 for the Raiders, this time due to a hamstring injury. And then he was traded to the Giants following the offseason, with hamstring issues continuing to plague him. In New York, Waller was due to count for $14 million against the Giants cap this year. In his place, Daniel Bellinger will likely step into the tight end starting role in New York. But keep in mind, like I said, they also drafted Theo Johnson out of Penn State in the 4th round, and they added Jack Stoll. So the Giants, not surprised by the decision at all. Darren Waller, I guess he was just waiting to see if, okay, no, I do love this game, because now would be the time where you've been away from it for long enough where you can actually start to miss it. And maybe he just wasn't missing it. He's like, okay, my heart's not in it anymore. We got Nash in the chat. What's up, Nash? Happy to have you in here. Darren Waller, though, no longer a New York Giant, and he will go on to pursue his rapping career. I wanted to talk about Jordan Love because this was an interesting comment that he made, which we don't really see that often. Jordan Love believes the Packers don't have to have a number 1 wide receiver. Jordan Love's first season in Green Bay as their starting quarterback was a success. Right now, the general manager and Jordan Love's agent are all trying to get a contract done before training camp starts. However long this process takes will probably only benefit Love. We know Tua is in contract conversations. Trevor Lawrence is in contract negotiations right now. So Jordan Love looking to get a deal done. But you look at the weapons that Jordan Love had last season. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Datavian Wicks, and Christian Watson. They've all made strides towards the end of last season and the offseason this year. And what Jordan Love is saying is that the prototypical number 1 wide receiver, the Packers quarterback doesn't think is necessary on this team. And I will quote him. I think you don't have to have a number 1 receiver, Love said via the team's official website. I think it works out well when you can spread the ball out and you got different guys making different plays and you can put them in different areas. I think it puts a lot more stress on the defense and the calls that they get in. So I think in the long run, it helps us not having a number 1 guy, a true number 1 guy. But I think all those guys can step up and be the one any given day. I totally agree with what he's saying here. Look, it doesn't, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like normally there is a number 1 wide receiver just because every team wants to have at least one really good wide receiver. So naturally, every team has a number 1 wide receiver because having at least one really good receiver in an offensive league seems necessary. But if you have 4 or 5 people that are all very capable, you could make an argument that that's better than having one good wide receiver. Now, you could have a good number one wide receiver, right? And let's say a good wide receiver, let's call him a 10, okay? Would you rather have a 10 and a 6 and a 5, or would you rather have 5 sevens, right? And I think that's what Jordan Love's saying. And he's like, look, and at any point, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? If you have the type of offense where the ball is being spread around, that is going to be the recipe for, a different receiver kind of emerging as the number one week to week. It's like last week they were, paying more attention to Christian Watson. This year they're covering Jaden Reed. Next week it'll be Romeo Doubs. And I just, although it is a different, it's a different kind of philosophy that we're used to seeing, I like it a lot. I think that it's a great mentality to have, because what Jordan Love isn't saying is we don't have a number one wide receiver on our team. He's saying any one of these receivers could be a number one at any given Sunday, but it would be an insult to call any of them a wide receiver 3, because your wide receiver 4, your wide receiver 5 typically aren't super involved in the game plan. They make a difference, and they, normally you have a good blocking wide receiver to be your wide receiver 4 or 5. But what the Packers are saying is like, no, we have 5 wide receiver 2s. And I think that it's a great philosophy, because Jordan Love has already shown that he has the mental awareness to find different guys. Like if you have the type of quarterback that can't see the field fast, then you almost need that number one guy, because it just needs to be, where's Stephon Diggs? Oh, there he is. Got the ball out of my hand, right? A security blanket, safety blanket. But when you have a quarterback that's a really fast processor and he can make decisions quickly about what kind of defense they're in and who's the open guy, then that's when the ball will get spread around to so many different guys. Jordan Love has that. We saw that in the Cowboys game. Someone blitzed and he throws a touchdown pass. Like he knew immediately, oh, if you're doing this, then this is what's open. So I think Jordan, it's not just that this philosophy works. I think this philosophy especially works if you have a quarterback that is a fast processor, that can see the field really quick and get rid of the ball. And I think it's going to work. Now, for fantasy purposes, it's not a great thing that there's not that one guy that we can play, right? It's kind of like, well, I guess you could have played David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, but it was like you never knew who was going to kind of take off. It went through waves, and that's kind of how this is going to be for the Packers. I think Christian Watson would probably be the number one if you had to pick one. But Jaden Reed was really starting to emerge as a kind of not Brandon Ayuk, but Deebo Samuel type player. Last year's numbers reflect an equitable distribution of opportunity. Reed led the group on the offseason with 64 receptions, 793 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But Doubs, who had 59 receptions, 674 yards, 8 touchdowns, and Watson had 58 catches, 422 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 9 games. And Wicks, 39, 581, and 4, wasn't too far behind. So it's like all of these players are contributing a lot, but it's not an amazing amount, right? There's no 1,000-yard receiver, but you have, 4 receivers over 500 yards besides Christian Watson, who only played 9 games. The group had their single game moments along the way, with each leading the team in receiving on at least 2 occasions. So on at least 2 games throughout the 2023 season, One of these receivers, Jatavion Wicks, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, all led that specific game in receiving yards. So Jordan Love isn't even talking about a philosophy that's going to be taking place next year. He's talking about what happened last year, if you were paying attention. Love finished top 10 in the league in passing yards, 4,159 passing yards. He had 32 passing touchdowns, and he really didn't get going until the middle of the season. So that's kind of scary. 372 completions, a 96.1 passer rating, and he led the Packers to a surprising playoff run to emphasize a successful first season as the quarterback. You can plug any of these guys at any position and they'll go out there and make plays, Love said. I think a little of that was proven last year, like we said. We had different guys injured throughout the season, and guys had to move around a little bit, play some different spots that they might not have been used to, so I definitely think that is the case. But you look at these guys, each person has their own skill set and what they do great. That's the key. It's trying to find out what that thing is and put them in the best position to be successful. Doubs, Reed, Watson, and Wicks aren't the only potential contributors either. Bo Milton might find himself in the rotation following a late year emergence during his rookie season. Malik Heath and Samori Tor round out a talented group drafted by general manager Brian Gutekunst. Packers head coach Matt LaFleur believes having a deep collection of wide receivers is a good problem to have. And we've seen this exact philosophy on edge rushers too. Like, we don't have a Von Miller, but we have 5 guys that are all a 6.5, right? And the thinking is let's say you have a 10 edge rusher, but by the third quarter, he's an 8. And maybe he's a 6 by the fourth quarter. And you average out all of these 10, 6, 7, 6. And by the end of the year, he's a 7.5, 8. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to have 4 7.5, 8s on our roster. It's just a different way of doing it. And it's all about having a deep, the Miami Heat do this with their bench. Like, they put a lot of emphasis in their bench being deep. And not, Jimmy Butler's a superstar, but for the most part, they get a lot of meaningful contribution from their bench. And I do believe that the best teams they tend to be the most deep, because one thing that you cannot avoid in this league is injuries. You cannot avoid injuries in this contact sport. It's going to happen. And if you can have that kind of depth, that when it does happen, it's not a big deal. It's just next man up. Next man up is scary when you know that you don't have somebody on the bench. Like, it's one thing for Aiden O'Connell to go down with Gardner Minshew throwing the ball. It's like, okay. It's another thing when, that you're in a really important game and Zach Wilson's warming up. So, Nash says, how has your day been? Day's been really good, man. Just trying to relax. I started a new job at a 55 and up community, so that's been taking a lot of my time. So I'm just trying to relax when I can and be really intentional about my time. So the Packers were obviously confident in the young wide receiver group after foregoing any additions throughout free agency or the draft. Instead, they brought in Josh Jacobs, the 2022 rushing champion, who's going to be a complement to Green Bay's passing attack and compensate for the loss of Aaron Jones. They also used a first-round pick on tackle Jordan Morgan to bolster the offensive line. Excuse me. And then they also bring in a potential rookie contributor in third-round running back Marshawn Lloyd. The Packers' first season without Aaron Rodgers went better than many expected thanks to Love and company. The 25-year-old quarterback is now in line to receive a major extension after cementing his status as the future in Green Bay, with or without a number one wide receiver, which is impressive. It is impressive to do it without a true number one wide receiver, but they're just beating you with depth. And now they bring in Josh Jacobs. They get Jordan Morgan. Jordan Love's going into his second year. It seemed like all season Jordan Love was really trying to find his way. Like Aaron Rodgers left a huge shadow, and that's why his advice to Jordan Love was just be you. And once they started winning towards the end of the year, and Jordan Love won a couple playoff games, and you see him like just little things like when the Packers released the NFL schedule where Tom Grassi got to be in the video, Jordan Love was acting in the video, like really finding his way and being like, this isn't Aaron Rodgers. This is the Jordan Love era. And I think if he's going to build off of last year, and that's going to be a topic we'll probably talk about later, is like, out of all the people that overperformed in 2023, who do you expect to regress? Like, and it's really difficult because it's like Brock Purdy had really good numbers, Jordan Love, and CJ Stroud. Like, you look at all these guys and you're like, there's no way they're going to be worse. Because you can make an argument that they're on a better team and they have more experience. So why would they regress? But there's always that one regression that doesn't really make a ton of sense that surprises all of us. And that's going to be fun to try to figure out who's that going to be this year. Who is it going to be? And the same thing goes for a record. You can have a really solid team and underperform. If you look at the over-under for wins and losses, every single team is pretty close. It's like it's between 7 and 12. That's where most teams are at. No one ever predicts that a team is only going to win 3 games. Yet every year a team only wins 3 games. That's another thing that's hard to guess. I think if you had to, I think maybe Minnesota's that team this year. Just look at their schedule and ask yourself, are they better than the team they're playing? And I like Brian Flores and what they're doing, but the whole point of this exercise is it's supposed to be somewhat shocking, right? That's the whole idea, is that there's a team that you're not expecting to do this bad that's going to do this bad. And who is that team going to be? It could have been the Denver Broncos last year with Sean Payton. It happens every year. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the NFL kickoff rule because it's worth mentioning that this is the biggest change. This is the biggest single rule change in the last 50 years, maybe 30 years. I mean, 30 years ago, they started doing, what was it, 2-point conversions? Yeah, 2-point conversions. 50 years ago, they moved the goalpost from the front of the end zone to the back. I know, what a crazy idea. It makes you wonder, like, how did it take so long? Like, why wouldn't you have started with it in the back? But it's easy for me to say. They were inventing a sport, It takes years and years to go, oh, yeah, let's move that here. Especially because once you create a sport, like, that's the way the sport is. Like, if you move the goalpost back, are we still playing football? I mean, that's not the way we think about it, but the people that invented it surely did. So anyway, these changes that happen in the NFL, this is a sacred sport, and when changes happen, we try our best to only add to the value of the NFL and not take anything away, adding something new without removing what the sport is at its core. And it's getting harder and harder to do that the more rule changes that there are. And it seems like every season there is one, but it could be something like the replay, it could be it could be a lot of different things, but rarely is it something as significant as this is going to be this year. And if there's a team out there, I mean, because there's really no examples. Like the analytics don't have any data on this. You have, the XFL, and that's pretty much it. And we're hearing things like maybe the kicker is going to be a linebacker, right? So he would be like the last line of defense if they were, running it back. And I've heard bold predictions from like guys like Mike Florio that by the trade deadline, there's going to be teams that are just kicking it out of the end zone on purpose and trusting their defense. And he said especially defensive-minded coaches who tend to be a little more conservative, because remember, it's not on the 25 anymore, it's on the 30. And if the NFL would have said a touchback puts you on the 35, maybe you wouldn't see as many teams entertain this. But since it's only 5 more yards and defensive coaches tend to trust their defense and be more conservative, they're just going to kick it out of the end zone on purpose. But once, it comes playoff time, this is going to be really interesting, because if there's a certain team that's just excelling in this new kickoff format, they're going to have a massive advantage in a way that I haven't seen in my lifetime, right? I'm 29 years old, so I haven't seen any changes this significant come to the NFL. And it's going to be really interesting, and I'm going to try to bring more information about this, because in a way, I think that we all just kind of come to expect these rule changes during the offseason, normally one rule. But this is going to be different than anything that we've witnessed in our lifetime if you're in my age group. This is going to be really crazy. The ball, just to remind everybody, the new NFL kickoff rule enacted March 26th. The ball kicked off from the 35-yard line. That's the same as the current rule. Safety kicks would be from the 20-yard line, same as the current rule as well. Okay, so as far as the ball being kicked off, nothing's changing. Okay, now let's talk about alignment. All kicking team players, other than the kicker, will line up with 1 foot on the receiving team's 40-yard line. Okay, so they're kicking from the 35-yard line. 5 yards behind that, you're going to have all of the players lined up that are on the receiving team. The kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line until the ball touches the ground or the player in landing zone or end zone. The 10 kicking team players cannot move until the ball hits the ground. So you know how we are so used to, as soon as that ball is kicked off, everyone's running downfield. You got the gunner on the outside running as fast as he can, going down there to make a play. It's going to be weird, because now you got the ball being kicked off and everyone has to freeze until the ball hits the ground or the ball touches a player in the landing zone or the end zone. So as soon as the ball hits the ground or a player, the play is now on. But my question is, how are if the ball bounces, like how are they going to see that? What if the opponents line up in a way where they could block the ability for them to see the ball hitting the ground? These are things that might sound like dumb questions, but I'm sure as soon as we see it for the first time, a lot of these type of questions will be answered, but they're just immediate questions that come out to me. Okay. The 10 kicking team players cannot move until the ball touches the ground. The receiving team will line up as follows. There'll be a setup zone, a 5-yard area from the 35 to the 30-yard line, where at least 9 receiving team players must line up. So you'll have 9 players between the 35 and the 30. At least 7 players with a foot on the 35-yard line. That's the restraining line. With alignment requires outside numbers to hashes, and inside hashes. Players not on the restraining line must be lined up in a setup zone outside the hash marks. All players in the setup zone cannot move until the kick has hit the ground. So you wouldn't be able to block it because you aren't allowed to move until the ball hits the ground or a player. So even on the receiving end, they're all frozen too. A maximum of 2 returners may line up in the landing zone, and they can move at any time prior to or during the kick. So there's 2 players that aren't frozen. Those are the 2 returners. They have to line up in the landing zone, and they're allowed to move around anytime during the kick while everyone's frozen. These 2 players have the authority to run around. The landing zone is the area between the receiving team's goal line and its 20-yard line. So that's the landing zone. Anything between the end zone and the 20-yard line. Any kick that hits short of the landing zone, so let's say a kick is kicked off, but it doesn't land within the 20 in the end zone. Let's say it bounces on the 25-yard line. Any kick that hits short of the landing zone, treated like kickoff out of bounds, the ball will be spotted at the 40-yard line. The play will be blown dead as soon as the kick lands short of the landing zone. So you cannot kick a ball short of the landing zone. It has to at least hit the 20-yard line, or it's going to be ruled like it was kicked out of bounds currently. Any kick that hits in the landing zone must be returned. So a kick that hits in the landing zone must be returned. There's no other way around it. You can't fair catch it. You can't take a knee. You have to return it. Now, any kick that hits in the landing zone and then goes into the end zone must be returned or downed by receiving team. If it's down, then the touchback goes to the 20-yard line. So if the ball bounces on the 5-yard line and you're in the end zone and you get the ball and you take a knee, you don't get to go to the 25 or the 30. You only go to the 20, or it must be returned. So the fact that the knee only goes to the 20-yard line incentivizes the player to try to return it. That's what this whole rule was about, is just trying to get the players to actually return it and bring this part of the game back. Kick hits in end zone stay as inbounds, returned or down. If downed, so if the kick goes into the end zone and then you down it, it goes to the 30-yard line. So currently that's at the 25, then it'll be the 30. So like I said, if certain defensive coaches don't like this rule, they're probably just going to say, okay, we'll accept it. Drive starts at the 30 instead of the 25. Any kick that goes out of the back of the end zone in the air or bounces will be a touchback to the 30-yard line. Okay, so same as what it is now, just 5 more yards. And they say that they don't have analytics in this rule yet, but one of the things that you could do is you could look at the analytics of how many drives starting from the 25 and the 30 result in a field goal, because it just seems like, oh, it's just 5 more yards. But I bet you the analytics would say 5 more yards boosts the percentage of drives ending in a field goal significantly. Because how many times do we see a team that's on the, let's say, the 42-yard line, and they line up for a 57-yard field goal, or what would be a 57-yard field goal, and they just punt the football? They're like, oh, let's just play field position and not take a chance. Now all of a sudden those kicks could be a 49 or a 51, 52-yarder. So I still think that 5 yards will end up becoming more important than we think. Some miscellaneous rules: no fair catch or signal is allowed. Officials will blow the play dead. Okay. So if conditions cause a ball to fall off tee twice, the kicker will be allowed to use kicking stick to keep the ball in place. So that would be the what's a kicking stick? Oh, the stick that holds the ball in place. Okay. The closest covering official will pick up the stick immediately after the kick. Onside kicks. So fourth quarter begins. The team trailing has the opportunity to declare an onside kick to the officials. Current onside kickoff rules would apply. If onside kick goes beyond the setup zone, untouched, kicking team penalized for UNS. Return team would start the drive at the 20-yard line. Penalties. The setup zone and landing zone will not change, with any penalties that carry over to kickoff. Alignment of 10 kickoff team players and all receiving team players would not change. Only the spot of the kick would move. So it's going to look exactly the same as far as the setup, but the spot of the kick is going to move. Penalties on scoring plays will not carry over and will be taken on the try. Penalties on the try may carry over, and if they do, only the placement of the kicker will change. Ooh, okay. That one doesn't matter that much. These kickers are the ones that are going to be moving. So, I mean, if you have a penalty that would favor your team, but now the kicker is moving up, it's just more of a guarantee that they're going to start on the 30. Unless you have a really weak kicker, I don't see how a penalty is going to benefit you as the kicking team. The safety kick will be from the 20-yard line, and the kicker will have the option to use a tee. The setup zone and the landing zone will not change. So this is different. So the kick is occurring from the 20-yard line, and the kicker will have the option to use a tee. We've always seen safety kicks done with a punt. So that is going to be a different thing as well. And last but not least, approved rulings. The special teams working group will continue to work with the officiating department to examine any necessary approved rulings or additional language that may be necessary to support this new rule. This language will be vetted with the club, circulated for comment to all the clubs, and finalized by the May meeting for the membership. And since we are in June, it looks like this is the latest of the kickoff rule. So really, really exciting stuff. Exciting to see. Man. I just don't know what to expect. It's gonna be really weird the first time we see it, but we'll see. I don't know if it's gonna be good or bad yet. It'll be different, but is it gonna be a good thing? We will see. One of the players that I expect to have a really big year this year, probably somebody that you wouldn't think of, David Njoku. Okay, I think David Njoku is going to have a really big year with the Browns. And he teased a juicy, in quotations, juicy Browns offense led by new offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. I'm really excited for this year, he said. He had a career year in Cleveland last year, but he is looking forward to what's next. The Browns tight end told Nate Ulrich of the Akron Beacon Journal at his annual softball event on Saturday that he's looking to just be better than he was last year. And that's going to be hard to top with the year he had last year. Njoku enjoyed career highs across the board for the playoff-bound Browns in 2023. He finished with a team-high 81 catches on 123 targets, almost 1,000 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, all the while playing alongside 5 starting quarterbacks. The tight end earned his first Pro Bowl nod, and rightly so. Njoku is going to have to adjust, though, because Deshaun Watson is returning to the fold as Cleveland's starting quarterback after 2 suspension and injury-tainted seasons. Now, Jerry Jeudy is joining. They got Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. And after 4 seasons with Alex Van Pelt, Cleveland will a new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Dorsey will be Njoku's 5th offensive coordinator in 8 seasons with the Browns, but the 27-year-old tight end is looking forward to this latest change. It's juicy, Njoku said of Dorsey's offense. I'm not going to say anything else. Leave it at that. But I'm really excited for this year. Juicy. It's juicy. Dorsey most recently spent 5 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, serving as an offensive coordinator that was not very good. He was fired mid-season with Buffalo because they got off to a 5-5 start, and then they started winning football games after that firing. The Browns surely hope Dorsey's history coaching Cam Newton and Josh Allen will translate into improving Deshaun Watson's game and growing a pass game that ranked 19th last year. In Dorsey's lone full season as the Bills' offensive coordinator, Buffalo ranked second in yards, points, and first downs. When he left in 2023, they ranked 7th, 8th, respectively, but struggled with turnovers. Dawson Knox didn't have a particularly juicy season with the Bills, starting tight end, Njoku's role with the Browns in 2022, but he did earn his lone Pro Bowl bid under Dorsey, totaling 517 yards, 6 touchdowns on 48 catches. Perhaps that portends positive things for Njoku, who, after an uncertain start to his career in Cleveland, is living up to his first-round billing and embracing the city that embraced him back. And he said, "I appreciate the city of Cleveland tremendously. Becoming a man here, there's a lot that entails. It's so much deeper than just that statement. You get me? So yeah, I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed to be here." And I'm telling you guys, this is the exact year for me. Things started to change. Right at 28, 29 years old, you start just feeling like, man, why is life getting easier? And it's like, because I'm not making the same mistakes as I did when I was in my early 20s. I am doing things differently. I am wiser. Life has slowed down. It's almost like when a quarterback says that the field has just slowed down, the game has slowed down. The game of life slows down at 28, 29, right? There's just so much that entails, like Njoku said. But what he's saying is like, it's happened, right? The switch has happened. And when that switch happens, it affects everything. It affects your personal relationships. It affects your relationship with work and what kind of worker you are, and if you're a reliable person. And it affects everything. And Njoku's saying, like, look, I turned that page last year. I'm going into another year. Njoku might mess around and be a top 3 tight end this year. I don't think that that's crazy. So if you're looking for a tight end on fantasy football and you're like, I don't know who to go with this year, Kelsey is going to be a second-round pick, maybe a first-round pick. So, I'm not going to go that route. If Njoku's sitting around in the round 4, that might be a pick that seems kind of bold, but it might pay off for you, because Njoku is going to build off of last season, and I think he's only going to be better with Deshaun Watson returning as Cleveland's starting quarterback. So Njoku, somebody that hasn't been talked about this offseason. And I wanted to bring up something that C.J. Stroud said. C.J. Stroud, I said, will probably win the Super Bowl this year. There's just too much talent on that team. And then you look at the addition of Stephon Diggs and you go, this is the best wide receiver group in the nation. But before you say that, I want you to know that CJ Stroud compares one of his wide receivers to Hall of Famer, a man that I have met, shook his hand and looked at him right in his eyes, Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson. Now, you might be thinking, what wide receiver would, be compared to a Hall of Famer? Of course, you go Stephon Diggs. And the thing is it's not Stephon Diggs. And matter of fact, Tank Dell was considered the wide receiver 1, and until he broke his leg, we didn't get to see Nico Collins. And that receiver is Nico Collins. Nico Collins, in the playoffs, he was so much better than everybody. I expect Nico Collins to be the wide receiver 1 on this team. Not Stephon Diggs, not Tank Dell. It's going to be Nico Collins. He's so good yards after the catch. He's elusive. He's quick. He's got good route running. He's reliable, good hands. He's a good red zone target. There's just nothing that he doesn't do well. And I think Nico Collins is in for a breakout year. And it's funny because you look at the best quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because you always say, oh, these really good quarterbacks always have the best wide receivers. And it's like, because they made them great. Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Brandon Stokely. Like, it didn't matter who you gave Peyton Manning, Eric Decker, Julius Thomas, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. It didn't matter. If you gave these great quarterbacks weapons, they were going to make them great. And the fact of the matter is, when Nico Collins and Tank Dell took the field last year, no one expected them to be great. And CJ Stroud's greatness transcends just his position. And now they're in a position where they have many wide receivers who are capable of being a wide receiver one. And then they add in Stephon Diggs, which just bolsters an already deep wide receiver group. And you're telling me that this team can't go to the Super Bowl? I don't see why not. Houston Texans wide receiver Nico Collins had himself a career year last year, becoming the favorite target of CJ Stroud, putting up by far his best career numbers in year 3. What a coincidence, right? This guy couldn't do anything until CJ Stroud got there. Speaking this week from Texans minicamp, Stroud spoke about his connections with the wideout and compared Collins' style of play and potential to that one of the greatest players in franchise history. And I got to say, a close family friend of ours played alongside Andre Johnson, and you probably don't remember him, but his name's Kevin Walter. And Kevin Walter is the reason that I got to meet Andre Johnson and that entire offense. Great time to be alive. I remember Mario Williams was drafted with the first overall pick, and I was so mad because I was a huge Reggie Bush fan, and I knew if Reggie Bush was drafted to the Texans, I would get to meet him. And I literally cried when they drafted Mario Williams, and Reggie Bush went number 2 to the Saints. Anyway, this is what Nico Collins said. He's a generational talent. He's like our Andre Johnson, in my opinion. Just how fast he is, how he gets in and out of his braces, releases, how strong he is. I think last year was just a preview of what's to come from him. That is some high praise for a player who's only been in the league for 3 years. And before his last season, he had fewer than 1,000 receiving yards to his name. But Stroud clearly sees unique talent in his wide receiver, enough to put his name next to one of the greatest of all time. Johnson, who is part of the 2024 Pro Football Hall of Fame, is the Texans' all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. He had 13,597 receiving yards, over 1,000 receptions, and 64 touchdowns. While Johnson's career numbers earned over a span of 14 years obviously outmatched Collins' output over 3 years in the league, Collins' 2023 season did put himself in the conversation of the best individual season for a Texan on record. The 25-year-old's 1,297 receiving yards ranked number 8 in single-season results. His 8 touchdowns are tied for 5th, with only DeAndre Hopkins and Johnson having better seasons based on those metrics. This offseason, Collins was rewarded a 3-year, $72.5 million extension, putting him among the top 10 highest-paid receivers in the league. While Collins would have a long way to go to match Johnson in terms of impact on the Texans over the course of a career, keeping him under contract through the 2027 season does ensure Stroud will have his most reliable target around for the foreseeable future. But while last year Stroud relied heavily on Collins, connecting with him almost twice as many as any other receiver, this year it's likely to see a different distribution of targets due to a much more crowded unit. Stephon Diggs had 1,100 yards last year for the Bills, and Tank Dell is going to be returning to the lineup. and he showed promise as a rookie before breaking his leg in week 13. But according to Stroud, Collins doesn't mind spreading the wealth, and having multiple high-value receivers lining up together will only improve a passing offense that ranks 7th. And I got to say, we've seen a lot of times where you build a dream team and it just doesn't work. It's like you got too much cooks in the kitchen. You think of basketball and you look at what the Clippers did. They're like, let's just bring in a bunch of big names. And I got to say, most of the time when you do that, it actually doesn't end up working. But if you can do that and everybody has this type of attitude, like, oh, I don't really care as long as we win. If you can get great players that are all selflessly out there just trying to make a difference whenever the ball comes their way, not putting any pressure. And that is why I was wondering, does the addition of Stephon Diggs make the Texans that much better or that much worse? And a lot of it is going to depend on what kind of Stephon Diggs we're going to get. Are we going to get year 3 Buffalo Bills Stephon Diggs or year 1 Buffalo Bills Stephon Diggs? Because they got a great thing going right now, and they're taking a tiny gamble by adding a big personality like Stephon Diggs. But I felt like they already had a really good group. But adding Diggs, of course, and it depends on what Diggs are going to get. But I think that Diggs is going to be focused, and I think the Texans are going to be really good this year. And CJ Stroud's going to probably have another great year, an AFC championship, and the cover of Madden next year for sure. He's just that guy. The guy is way more than what he was advertised to be. The Panthers must be kicking themselves for drafting Bryce Young. This guy is just, he's got it. The Texans got it. They got the coach. They got the Will Anderson. They got the offense. There's nothing holding this team back from making a run at the Super Bowl. And that is crazy when you look at last year. They were projected to win 4 games, and now we're talking about them winning a Super Bowl. And that's what happens when you draft the offense and defensive rookie of the year in the same draft class in back-to-back picks. So watch out for the Texans, man. They are the real deal. And CJ Stroud feels like they have their own Andre Johnson and Nico Collins. Devin Singletary is taking over for the Giants, and he's going to use the Aaron Rodgers advice to Jordan Love. I'm just going to be me. Singletary might be sporting Saquon Barkley's vacated number 26 in New York, but he's not concerned with living up to his predecessor. As the Giants approach the 2024 season without Barkley on the roster for the first time in 6 years, Singletary's plan to take over the backfield is to keep chugging along as he always been. I've been in the league just like him, Singletary said via the New York Post. He's only been in the league a year before me. I feel like I'm a playmaker like him, so I'm just going to be me. It's been going well for me since I've been in the league, so that's what I'm going to keep doing. It's little wonder Singletary is confident in ability to deliver for Big Blue. He's coming off a career high 900 rushing yards, almost 898 in 2023 for the Texans after amassing 200 plus carries for the first time in his NFL 5 seasons. His offseason signing with New York makes him the undisputed leader in the running back room. It also has Eric Gray, Jashwan Corbin, Dante Miller, and 5th-round rookie Tyrone Tracy Jr. Singletary is also reuniting with head coach Brian Daboll, who served as his offensive coordinator for 3 years in Buffalo. And he's set to play behind a line that was invested in well during free agency. And while he's not nearly as dangerous as Barkley in the passing game or as explosive overall, Singletary has proven himself capable when provided the opportunity, even averaging more yards per carry than his contemporary with 4.6 versus 4.3 over the course of their careers. Given Barkley's star power and his departure being for the rival Eagles, there's bound to be comparisons between the two backfields at points during the season. As far as Singletary is concerned, though, the looming storyline shouldn't have any effect on New York's overall goal. I don't know. Just ball out, win games. I think that's the biggest thing. That's what Singletary said. That's our focus anyway, to win games. We ain't really worried about the shadow of Saquon or none of that. It's just find ways to win games. In 2023, Barkley and the Giants often came up fruitless in that regard, failing just to win 6 games after a surprise postseason trip the year prior. Should New York stack enough victories for a playoff return in 2024 with Singletary, it will matter little who came before him. And that's the fact, man. It's not going to matter that Saquon Barkley's gone if the Giants go out there and win more games than they won last year. And that's just the truth of the running back position. Like, you can be a top guy in this league and teams will still move on and say, nah, you're disposable. Now, when you looked at Daniel Jones' win-loss record when Saquon was and wasn't off the field, I would say Saquon Barkley was a little more valuable than he was given credit for, especially to the Giants' success they had in 2022. But I still think last year was so bad that Brian Daboll is playing for his job this year. And so is Daniel Jones. And next year's not a huge quarterback class. Like, you got Shedeur Sanders coming out. You got the quarterback from, where is it? Carson Beck from Georgia. You got Quinn Ewers from Texas. Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Cameron Ward from Miami. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Riley Leonard. Drew Allar. Connor Wiegman at Texas A&M. Graham Mertz from Florida. These are all guys that are looking to be the best prospect, and number one is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is, of course, comes from the bloodline of greatness. He was really good last year. The team let him down. The offensive line was absolutely horrible, and he still found a way to throw for over 3,000 yards, almost a 70% completion rate. His QB rating was 109.2. I think it was week 3 where they came back and won a game, and he had to go 99 yards and get a 2-point conversion in a minute, and he did it. I think that was against Colorado State, if I'm not mistaken. But Shedeur Sanders kind of proved that he's made up of the stuff that you want, and if he can continue to build off of what happened last year, he could be a really good prospect to come into the league next year for, say, the Giants if they don't win a ton of games. So all that stuff is TBD. It could be the Vikings. It could be a lot of teams. Who's going to get the number 1 pick next year? It could be the Panthers again. And if that's the case, this could be Bryce Young's last season, right? You can't be the worst team 2 years in a row. They move on. The last thing I wanted to say as well is Von Miller. As you can see, I got the 58 jersey right there, signed by Mike McGlinchey, Justin Simmons, and some other great Broncos. Von Miller is one of the greatest Denver Broncos to ever play the game. He'll have a statue, no doubt. What cannot be seen will hopefully soon be forgotten for Von Miller in 2024. And you might be thinking, man, what's going on with Von Miller? Because we just talked about whether he was going to get his contract adjusted. But this year he is playing for a lot of money, right? Because if he doesn't have a good year this year, it's over. Okay. But Von Miller is practicing without a knee brace for the first time since 2022. Okay. I've continued to grind and continued to work on my knee, Von Miller said. Everything revolves around my health and how my knee is feeling. So far, I've been practicing without a knee brace, and that's something I could not do last year. So I know during the season, once you get in the mix and the games, I should be able to go. Miller suffered a season-ending knee injury on Thanksgiving Day in 2022. He began the 2023 season on the PUP list as he continued to rehab the catastrophic injury, which included an ACL tear and damage to his meniscus. But the 8-time Pro Bowler struggled upon his return, producing just 3 tackles while being held sackless across 12 regular season games and 258 sacks. Miller remained unproductive on the stat sheet during Buffalo's playoff run, which featured more injuries to the Bills' defense. The season culminated in a 1-score loss to the Chiefs in the divisional round, a game in which the Bills failed to sack Mahomes even once. But Miller saw a silver lining toward the end of his year as it pertained to his knee, and he hopes it serves as a jumping point going into 2024. My last 3 games of the season, Miami, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City, were my best games of the year, he said. I hate that it waited all the way to that point, but that's what it took. So I'm trying to use that as a springboard into the season. For an esteemed pass rusher with 123.5 sacks to his name, Miller's on-field absence was a surprise to most, yet coming back from such a major injury would be tough for anyone, let alone a 13-year veteran playing at his age 35 season. A healthier and more confident Von Miller would be a godsend for a Buffalo squad that lost several notable players on defense, including Leonard Floyd, the team's sack leader last year, and longtime team safety Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, and cornerback Tre'Davious White. Man, so that this Bills, man, we won't use the word rebuild when we're talking about them, but all the defensive players that are gone, the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, gone. They still have Josh Allen, so no one's going to say it, but boy, does this team need Von Miller to really step up and be what he was, when he was in Denver or with the Rams even. The Bills still possess a strong defensive line, which tends to be the force that maintains order on defense. Miller, who signed a 6-year, $120 million deal with the Bills in 2022, is growing confident he can be a viable pass rusher on that unit as he finally puts his knee injury in the rear view. And yeah, I think if Von Miller's healthy and on the field, there is not many players that can be as impactful as he can. And we see it all the time where it takes 2 years to fully get back from an injury. Saquon Barkley wasn't the same. Javonte Williams wasn't the same last year. These really bad knee injuries, it's always the second year after them that we see players get back into form. We got Grand Zier in the chat. Kyle, what is? What it is what it is. We talked about Darren Waller informing the Giants that he was going to retire. We talked about Njoku, talking about the Browns' new offense and how it's juicy under offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. We talked about CJ Stroud saying one of his wide receivers is like Andre Johnson. We talked about Jordan Love saying the Packers don't need a wide receiver number 1. And we talked about Von Miller and the fact that he is practicing without a knee brace and he is good to go for the 2024 season. And we did not talk about the Broncos depth room, but we are going to be talking about the Broncos on my personal YouTube page at Kyle Kitzman on YouTube. I'm about to put some shorts from my last interview I did with Bronco fan number 9. It was a great interview. But yeah, that channel will always be much more directed to the Denver Broncos than the NFL, where this will be the NFL with splashes of Broncos and Bears. So definitely check that out. I will. I'll put the link to the latest episode in the what do you call it, in the so you guys have it. But it's been great getting to see all these different fans and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me on X, you can follow me at NFL with Kyle. And you can also follow my partner Rick at And Now Rick. And we are going to be bringing you another episode tomorrow night, just the two of us. But I wanted to come in midday and give you a special Sunday, June 9th episode. It has just been really crazy getting this new job and trying to, balance a new job with the podcast and all of this. So really appreciate you guys being patient with us getting out these episodes. And sorry, I just got a text message. And I wanted to say, as a special military tribute or a thank you to anybody that served on D-Day or knows somebody that stormed the beach on Normandy, whether it was air, land, or sea, whether it was an American, someone from the UK, a Canadian. There were many different countries that were doing that in the name of freedom. So we tip our glasses to you, and we thank you and anybody that you are associated with that is a part of that historic day. And we got MPW Ryan in the chat saying hi. What is up, MPW Ryan? Happy to have you in here. And as always, if you guys could hit the like button on this video, let the algorithm know that you like it, not just me, but like it. Kyle, didn't you storm the body of Kaylee Gunner? She served when you did. Didn't I? How do I like if I'm on Twitch? Oh, I'm not really sure. I'm not even that familiar with Twitch, to be honest. It's kind of an amazing thing that we're streaming on Twitch right now. But I appreciate you asking. I have no idea. I know on YouTube you can, so I guess we only have a couple people watching from YouTube. Maybe Nash, Granzier are on YouTube, and we have some others. But definitely check out the link that I put in there. I had a Broncos fan from Tampa Bay, Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Colorado, Wyoming. Yeah, Wyoming. And I can't remember some other ones, but just all over. And we're starting to really build our community. Oh, and he said, "Oh, okay, so you follow on Twitch." Yeah, we would appreciate it. If you do, we go through all NFL news. We're doing division predictions during the season. We live stream football games. We talk about them. We do recaps. We do predictions. We do all that stuff, and we got a good family going. We got 18 members here, and MPW is going to follow. Let me see if I can light the fireworks off. No fireworks. Sometimes when I put 2 thumbs up, we get fireworks, but for some reason, it's only been doing thumbs up lately. There's the fireworks for our new follow, MPW Ryan. Hell yeah, brother! Thank you for that. And every follow and sub we get helps us. Me and my buddy, we are both Navy vets that have gotten out of the military, and we love football. And our goal is to bring football content to the world, and hopefully one day do this for a full-time job. So we do appreciate it from the bottom of our heart. And we thank you for making it this far to the video. If you joined late, just rewind it, watch it back from the beginning. And if you want to wait until tomorrow, I'll have Rick back on here, and me and him will be talking sports together as always. He is in Seattle for the afternoon, hanging out with his wife, having a good time. So we send our love to you, Rick, and we will see you guys tomorrow. MPW is our newest member. You're going to have a lot of fun meeting the other members, Bill, Crafty, KC. You're going to see them all tomorrow. So come back tomorrow around 7 or 8 p.m. Central Time, and we'll be going live. And once again, thanks for becoming a member of the only football family. Hello, I'm Nash from YouTube. Hell yeah, Nash coming in with another profile. This is our newest member, MPW Ryan. He's going to follow us on Twitch, and just glad to see the family continue to grow. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Only Football. You guys have a great night. Be safe. Have a good week starting tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow night. See ya!